And we're live. Welcome back to the 2018 Canadian Lawn Bowling Championships. Wow. I'm Jake Shuknik, and I'm joined by Mr.
Charlie Taylor.
All right. Charlie, you're a local Saskatchewanian.
I am. Been playing out of this great province for 20 years now. Mostly enjoyable. It's always fun when you've got guys like John Patuli, Alex Scott, the rest of the Patuli clan to play against.
Mm-hmm. So we are doing women's fours here once more, and we've got BCA, which is Emma Boyd at skip, Cheryl Young at third, Lori Fredrickson at second, and Sue Hall at lead. And they are playing against a Nova Scotia team of Lena Cameron at skip, Anne Marie Seitman at third, Kathy Myketten at second, and Patty Granville at lead. And assuming that they're watching, quick hello to Karen Barton and Tony Buckingham from Melbourne, Australia, who are friends of Anne Marie Seitman's from the Australian Open. So we've got a couple of Aussies watching, assuming that they actually have tuned in already. It's bright and early down there, down in Melbourne.
And still probably about 20 degrees warmer than we are here today.
Oh yeah, at least. As always, if you want to get in touch with us, reach out to us on Facebook or Twitter at BCB Bowls. Feel free to send me an email directly if you'd like. I'm monitoring that as well. And so with this rink here that we've been using as the TV rink, and wow, what a wick off that was, holy smokes. There's always been that little bit of shadow coverage from the trees just in that corner. And I think that's been there all three rounds today. That's just always going to be there, right?
That will never go away. The shadows, and there's a little bit of probably about 3 feet out, a small little dip that is there that will run off towards the ditch a little bit. But the shadows on Green B here, there's something that you will see them from your 9 o'clock game right through until your 7, 8 o'clock at night.
So both of these women's teams are sitting at 1-7, and this is the last round of the round robin. So they're duking it out to try to not be down at the bottom. But both of them have got a win under their belts already anyway.
With being here the last couple days, watching both teams have played some really incredible bowls, just on the wrong end of a couple breaks here and there.
Greens are a little tender here. There was some good sprinkler coverage last night, I guess is the best way I can phrase that. So the greens are still a little damp, and I was talking with Terry in the last round, and he was saying, you know, when you sprinkle the greens at night, the next day the sun actually draws up all the moisture again, so they actually slow down rather than speed up. So now that the sun is finally out for first time all day pretty much, we'll finally start to get that moisture being drawn back up to the surface.
It's nice to have the sun come out here for the players for the last game. The first 2 games a little bit challenging with the lack of sun and the massive amounts of wind that comes and goes that we have that come through these 2 greens particularly.
It's a funny thing, the first end of every game that we've streamed here is that almost all the bowls are always short, whether it's this direction or even come back the other direction too. It takes about 3 to 4 ends for both teams to really figure it out. So this game so far is no difference, although there was some jack movement a little bit earlier, I believe, but very sporadic head here shaping up so far. It's not going to be easy for the skips to find their way through here.
This hand that Emma is playing is usually the side that moves quite a bit.
Well, she found a port, but just a little bit too much weight. It plopped into the ditch there. So we've got Lena Cameron from Nova Scotia on the mat here, grandmother of Cam and Lindsay Lafrane. Cam, of course, is on our senior squad, national team.
I remember when Cam was just little Cam.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people do, back when he was just a a wee lad.
Went to my first under 25 in, or one of my first under 25s, and Cameron was there as, I think he was a 10 or 11-year-old on the sidelines, and it's great to see how far Cam has come.
Lots and lots of practice, I can tell you that. I know that him and Jackie Foster just practice quite a bit down in Nova Scotia, whether it's at Dartmouth or any other club. Having been on the receiving end of all their training plans, I get bombarded with those relatively frequently that I have to share with Coach.
It's nice to see the young guys put in the effort. We have a couple here in Saskatchewan, Grant and Michael, that that they put in the work, and you see them putting in the work, and you see them progressing and really coming along.
I am very happy with where our high performance program is going based off of the results we had at the Commonwealth Games, with 6 out of 8 teams finishing in the top 4 is a first for Canada that we've ever done, which is spectacular. But it's also nice to actually understand how our high performance program works. If you go on our website under national team, there's actually, you can see the criteria, what it takes to get on the team and how you're ranked and what have you. Back when I was 18, I got invited to a national team camp. No idea how or why. While I was at that camp, they were naming the team, and I got placed on, I think, our like B team, which meant we got to compete at Tier 2 events, which was sort of like the Tiger Bowls and Hong Kong Open, stuff like that. But again, no idea why I was on Tier 2 and not Tier 1, or how I got there or anything like that. So I'm a huge fan of, now you can actually see how you get picked, what events you need to compete in, and how people are ranked, I guess you could say. Just really, it's a lot more transparent now how to get on the team, because back then I had no idea why I got lucky or how I got to where I got to. Really no clue. So
with the amount of talent that we have in Canada, it's nice to be able to see what it takes and know that we have a lot of great players that can aim and make the adjustments needed and do what they need to do to be at that level. It's nice having that that platform to work for.
It's really interesting here today. Having some issues with audio. Apparently we're still very quiet. Let us know if that's any louder. I'll get Charlie and I both to speak up a little bit just so that you can hear us. Fingers crossed that works. I know Jane's watching, as this is Emma's final game on the TV rink here. Quick shout out there. Nice to have you with us again, Jane.
It's nice to see the juniors that competed in Winnipeg that are out here playing this week.
That's a beautiful bowl there from Kathy.
Well played.
The only downside that I talked with Terry about is when you're competing at the juniors and then have to turn around and compete at this is the burnout factor. It can be very draining. Not to mention, before the juniors, there's still potentially other playdowns you might be competing in, other tournaments, and who knows what there is after this back home in your local province or local city. So burnout's something you definitely want to be aware of. You don't want to be overusing any muscles or overexerting yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Prime example is the 2 Watson boys from Saskatchewan. They've went through some pretty hard-fought provincial tournaments in the fours. They were playing on the last day, and pairs they played in the final, and that went to 2 games. So they've played a lot of bowls this year.
And that's the tricky thing with being here in Canada when we only have 4 good months of summer. Everybody tries to jam as much in as they can because you've got 8 months of sitting at home on the couch waiting for the snow to melt. So everybody tries to jam as much as they can into 4 months, and that's understandable because, you know, you want to bowl, but also maybe not necessarily the best strategy, best tactic to do.
I completely understand what you're saying there, and if my boss is listening, I'd like him to know that I need to practice more.
Well, that is part of the intent of why we changed some dates around here. Youth Championships got pushed back by a couple weeks. This event got pushed back by a week to allow, you know, a little bit of extra time for people to practice, a little bit more time for provinces to hold their playdowns. So it's, so far I haven't heard too many complaints about it being pushed back by a week or two. It doesn't seem to really have any negative consequences that I've heard of, aside from the most popular complaint is teachers saying teachers can't necessarily play in this now because it's too close to their working life, I guess, getting ready for back to school prep. But my rebuttal to that is, why do we care about one profession over any other? We're not making exceptions for doctors or lawyers, so why would teachers get an exception?
I was going to say, if my boss would give me 4 months off in the summer, I'd be real happy.
Yeah. When we were doing our competition review, we actually asked a few teachers, and the ones we talked to said, you know, everybody else has to take a week off of vacation. It only makes sense we'd have to use our vacation time for this too. Like,
Absolutely.
what a beautiful bowl there from Anne-Marie Seitman.
Great head here so far this end.
Jane's telling me, no, they're not sitting on the sofa. They're playing indoor in the winter, but you're one of the very lucky few that can do that out in BC with really our only quality indoor in the whole country. The Pacific Indoor Bowls Club out in Vancouver is 6 rinks of really good carpet. The rest of the country makes do with what they can find, which is usually an indoor soccer pitch or something like that, which is not really lawn bowling, to be honest. It's more like hucking on... Yeah, I'll stop there before I say anything too offensive, but definitely not the same.
Not the same at all. Right now, in what we have here is short mat is about the only thing we have close to being able to throw anything in the winter.
Yeah, that's fair. A lot of clubs do have short mat, and that's something that can be pretty reliable, pretty consistent, but definitely not the same as playing a full length.
No, we are definitely jealous here in Saskatchewan that we don't have the opportunity to play in an indoor facility. We a lot of us like to think of it as 2 seasons. We have bowling season and 8 months of wait for bowling season.
Yeah, we touched on this in one of an earlier broadcasts about it'd be nice if we had more indoor locations across Canada. That's definitely something that we'd like to further explore, how we can achieve that, because everybody knows that cost is a huge barrier.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you look at things like hockey and curling, they have things that justify their expenses on their arenas and their facilities, and it's just one of those things we need to continue to work and show how great our game is.
So Emma's throwing a little bit of weight here and chasing it down, but I don't think she liked it. Don't think that cleared up enough to really make a difference.
No, I think is it still down 2?
Not tough to tell.
Looks like Lena's coming in here to cover off the back.
Will she stop in time, though? Will she stop in time? Yeah,
what a bowl.
Just. There's about, 2 inches between that bowl and the ditch board, at least the little wooden plinth that's there.
Couldn't have played that any better if she wanted to. Looks like Emma's still in a little bit of trouble here. I wouldn't be surprised to see her play something similar.
And that's the thing with fours too. When you only have 2 bowls, after throwing a drive on your first one, it's not the easiest thing to do, a drive and draw. And the way that head's set up there, that's going to be very difficult to draw off anyway. So I think you're right. She's probably better off to continue doing what she did with her first.
Looks pretty close. Oh, great bowl.
Got a very good result out of that. Cut them down for sure. Lena's going to come down and take a look at this. And some measures for shot.
Great adjustment by Emma there.
Quite pleased with all 3 games here. The first match this morning, Priscilla was making a few really good drives, and then Jordan Koss made a few really good drives second game, and now we've got Emma making a good one here too. So the youngsters are really coming through with the upweight shots here.
Lucky today to have 3 of the up-and-coming women stars of our game playing on this rink.
Well, the game right before this one was a heck of a battle too, and right down to the end, 9-9 with a tie at the end. It was a really good game. Very happy to see that both teams deserved to win, and both teams ended up coming out with a tie. So
you don't like to lose those ones, but you almost don't like to tie them either.
Well, it's funny because those 2 teams were tied for 3rd place, trying to get in to 1 or 2 to be able to play for gold, and so since they tied, they didn't really help or hurt their causes either. Just stayed the exact same.
It's always nice going into your last game of the tournament and having that meaningful game that you win. You get to go into the medal rounds on a positive note.
So Lena crashed on a short bowl there, so they're probably going to get the measures out here, I would think.
It's nice to see all across the board there's been a lot of really close games here at Nationals this year. The men's pairs has been absolutely dynamite with the teams and the games. Watched Pat Bird and John from Alberta against Doug and Ernie from Saskatchewan in the last game, and those four guys were just absolutely putting on a show, shot for shot, and it's so much fun to be out here with watching these guys and these ladies do what they do best.
Well, you know, it's funny you said that because since it was too windy yesterday, we didn't stream the last game, so I was trying to draft a press release that we could write about where everybody stood after day 2. And since the 6th round hadn't quite finished, I looked at men's pairs, and there was 2 teams tied for first, and the next 5 teams were tied for third. And I was like, well, that's just a huge cluster. I can't really say anything about that right now because after this round, everything will change. But very tight battle over there in the men's pairs for sure. So it's another one to BC then.
That makes the shot Emma made that much better.
But that is one of the analyses that I'll be doing with our big competition review. We were trying to make games a little more meaningful. I did a very brief analysis before I left here for shot differential for all the games last year to see how many blowouts there were. And looking through some of the games, I think one of the games last year here was like 42-5 or something like that. And I'm just thinking, like, that's not a very meaningful game. But I haven't really seen any blowouts here. Nothing drastic. The one game we streamed, men's 4, Saskatchewan and BC, turned into a blowout within the last 3 ends. But prior to the last 3 ends, it was within, you know, like a 5-point game. So I'd argue that that's not really a blowout much either.
Not at all. And that's the thing. If most games that I've seen, they've been within that 5-6 points going into the last couple ends, where both teams still have a chance to come out with the outcome they're looking for. Which, I mean, when you get to this event, that's what you want. You want to play 18 ends of fun bowls, and it's always fun when it's closer.
Absolutely. You never really want to be on either end of a massive blowout. It's not fun if you're winning by that much, really, and it's certainly not fun when you're losing by that much either.
The only time it's ever fun for me winning by that much is when I'm playing against John and Alex because of how many times they beat me, and it hasn't really happened where I've been that far ahead of them. So
Sue Hall just started off with a banger here from BC. Great opening bowl.
Sue's a great bowler, but an even better person.
Can't say I've ever met her before.
I went to the singles in West Vancouver a couple years ago, and she was part of the committee, and they did a fantastic job of making every single one of us feel like we were at home.
And there's some very consistent bowling there. Sue's just set up BC nicely with her too.
Now see if the second from BC here can continue with the pressure, make it a little bit harder here on Nova Scotia. They're all playing the ditch side there, the more swingy side.
I noticed that today too, because on day 1, almost nobody played that hand. But then day 3 today, everybody's playing that hand.
A lot of times when we're playing the provincials on this rink, you will not see more than a handful of bowls played on the ditch side. It's one of those that you only play this side a lot of times if you have to.
I think Lori's crashing on that short bowl there.
Just a little underneath.
Yeah, just a bit of a crash.
Looks like this one might be a little bit underneath as well.
Mm-hmm.
Nice bowl coming in here.
Cheryl took a fair bit of grass there. Last game, Terry was telling us about when there's a short bowl. One of the drills he does with some of his players is he'll say, all right, there's a bowl that's in your line. I'll give you $5 if you hit it, but every time you miss it, you have to give me $1. And more often than not, he comes up on the better end of that, because just because there's a short bowl in your way, even when you try to hit it, more often than not, you're going to end up going around it. So just because there's a short bowl there doesn't mean you have to switch hands.
That is one of my favorite drills to do, is the covering the jack with about a 1.5 foot short bowl, just to be able to get around and work on that. My girlfriend has only played a handful of times, and she said, I want to try some of the drills that you're doing. So I had her out there on Wednesday afternoon doing it. And the first time she did it, she went, man, this is hard. So then I said, well, you have to make the shot before we can go home for supper. And the next one, she drew it right in, and I went, all right, at least we get to go for supper now. But it's a nice thing with this game. It doesn't matter if you've played it a lot or not. It's I think once you've played it a couple times, you don't start getting the bug to want to play more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She watched me for 4 years and went, I don't know if I like this or not. Got her out on the green a little bit, and oh, maybe I should buy a set of bowls.
So still a very wide open draw here. I'm surprised that none of the bowls have actually really come up short in that draw line. Both of Sue's bowls are still just sticking around there. And I think Emma's probably just looking to add to that, maybe tuck the jack in behind a little bit.
Emma's got a great looking bowl coming in here.
Oh, and she chipped the jack back to the side there.
Lena's made the switch to the other hand.
Don't think she likes that.
Great bowl.
I'm not sure why she didn't like that. It looks like that could be shot from here. Yeah, it is.
What a great shot.
I think I'd have to follow her down and try to pick it.
I think so. A little bit of even just yard on. Yeah, she doesn't look far off here.
Lena's last bowl, probably just looking to replicate what she just did.
This one looks pretty close to the last one.
Very, very close, but isn't enough. That's an excellent caterpillar drill. Well, for sure gets them on the board, if nothing else, but I don't think it's going to be enough for 2, but they'll put a tape to it anyway.
Great effort.
Mm-hmm.
Both the last 2 shots, the first played by Emma and the last one by Lena, were very close in the area. Both great shots. Everything but the result.
Yeah, just a singular. So 2-1 after 3.
That's great to see these 2 teams fighting it out in the last game for both of them here in Regina, and both fighting it out to the best of their ability and making some good shots.
Mm-hmm. Takes a fair bit of time to lay the blanket down there.
The fun of ground sheets, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Looking over at the third rink on the greens, Pat Bird is doing what he needs to do. Up 5-1 at the moment.
Mm-hmm. For all the Nova Scotia fans, next door's men's pairs looks like Nova Scotia B is up 4-1 over BC as well.
With John Seitman skipping his first game at Nationals.
That's right. Not sure if Sue put enough into this one. Needs a little bit more mustard.
A little bit longer jack coming back towards the north side of the property here. This side of the green will play a little bit heavier coming up the hill.
That's an excellent ball there from Kathy.
Great adjustment from the first one.
So she's got one that's just about resting the ditch and one on the jack. That's a unconventional way of doing it. Normally you put one on the jack first and then put one behind after, but hey, it's effective. It worked.
As a skip, I'd be happy right now.
Yeah, no complaints. That's a pretty good answer from Sue.
Great second.
Patty takes a very long step. She has a very good lunge there. Just crashing on Sue's short ball.
Pretty good weight there.
Yeah, would have been in the ballpark. And Lori's looking to come through the port, but she's got a nice little rub there to redirect. That's a much better second.
This end setting up not bad for BC, even though they are down the one, they're in very good position all the way around.
It's coming up well short there.
Looked like it came out pretty nice.
Well, that's definitely not the bowl that she wanted to hit. That was another Nova Scotia bowl coming in there, so now Nova Scotia's line 2. I think Nova Scotia's sitting pretty well right about now.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't expect Anne-Marie to come too close into that vicinity.
She grabs the inside of the red. Just about there.
That's a great bowl.
Still just 2 Nova Scotia bowls right about now in the count.
The counter just fell over in front of the jack, making it a little bit more difficult to see.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting now because that's changing how you can play into that. When you play onto that bowl, jack's going to pop back. It might actually pop back onto second shot and squirt to the side. Well, that brings another one in almost into the count. And you see Emma's calling where the jack's going to pop when she hits it.
Now would be a good time for a result for Team BC for that to get out in the open. Oh,
wow.
What a bowl.
Wow. Definitely didn't see that coming. I don't think that's exactly what Emma was calling for either, but what a great result. That's stole the shot away from Nova Scotia.
Unbelievable. I think both of us were seeing the same shot.
Yeah. And it wasn't that.
Not that at all. Now it almost looks like Lena may have to come up on the other hand, and
Do the exact same shot that Cheryl just did.
absolutely.
She even has a little bit of a soft trail there for 3 if she gets it perfectly. Only needs the jack to move about an inch.
So coming up through the port.
I'm surprised she played that hand, to be honest.
She must have been seeing the port, through the port
Yeah,
onto the bowl.
through the port in the middle. That's fair. From our angle, it doesn't look nearly as nice as it does from the camera view, actually. Looking at it through the camera, going through the port in the middle there does look a lot more enticing.
Definitely does.
But
That's now gone.
Might still be there. Not sure what Lena's going to be able to see from the mat.
Looks like she's changing her hand here.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. I guess it did take it away.
A little bit more swingy out there.
Mm-hmm. That can be tricky when you're playing with a hill for how much grass you need to take when you're throwing weight.
Emma's awfully close with this one here.
Ooh, very good effort. Not sure if that was enough, though.
Oh,
Yeah,
great try.
Just one. So this is round number 9. If we do have tiebreakers, which I'm fairly certain at least someone's going to have some sort of a tie at the end of all this. Tiebreakers will be tomorrow at 9 a.m. local time, with all of the middle rounds being played around 1 p.m.
It wouldn't be a national tournament without at least without one tiebreaker, would it?
Yeah, there's usually at least one. I just hope it's not a 5 or 6-way tie, because those are a pain in the butt to try to figure out how it gets broken down.
I'm glad I'm not the math guy in that situation.
Well, I remember last year it was me, George Cubis, and I think it was Davey Matthew, or no, whoever their chief scorer was at the time. I feel bad, I can't remember his name, and I talked to him for the whole week, so I should. We were all locked in the scorer's booth for about a good hour, just triple checking everything, because the last thing you want to do is make a mistake and have people jumping down your throat about it. So the annoying part is actually the way that the tiebreakers work, is you have shot differential for the games played between all those who are tied. So once you have like 5 teams tied, to do that for 5 different teams, just it takes a long time to add up, and it's tedious to do when you're on a bit of a timeline, I guess. For this year, though, it actually kind of time-wise almost works out really well, because it's at the end of the day, after this round, I can figure it out and spend all night doing that.
It's always tough when everybody wants to know exactly what's going on about
Yeah.
10 minutes after the game.
Yep.
I have to admit I'm bad for that. I'm one of those guys. Like to know where I stand.
Mm-hmm. I would much rather go back to breaking ties all on paper and not having tiebreaker games. That's what's done internationally, and seems kind of silly to me that we're giving people another chance to get into the middle rounds when they had just played 9 rounds. That should have been enough to either confirm your first place or you're not.
Absolutely.
But that's just my personal opinion.
I won't disagree, especially if you're thinking about it from the point of view of the person that loses the tiebreak. They're playing that extra game, completely wore out, and then being that much more frustrated that you're that much closer to a medal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just around.
Oh, great ball.
Just tickled it on its way through. I saw that Sask's ED, Tina Chernoff, showed up here today. Good to see her. I've communicated with her quite frequently over the past, I don't know, 6 months, however long she's been with Wolsask.
She's absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Looks after us very well.
Could not agree more. It does boggle my mind, though, how only 3 provinces have an ED.
Yeah, that's an interesting stat. I didn't know about that one. I mean, I've been playing here for 20 years, and as long as I can remember, we've always had one. And it's even when I was in under 25s, we had some great ones that when it was you're going to Ottawa this year, everything was set up so well that you had nothing to worry about from the time you packed your bags till the time you got off the plane coming home. It was absolutely fantastic. Can't say enough about the support staff that we have in Saskatchewan regarding, especially people like Tina, that she's been first class from the day she started. Although I see she has herself in a little bit of trouble right now. She's sitting next to that hot shot, Alex Scott.
I'm sure he's given her an earful.
Absolutely. Wonder if he's game planning for his week at the singles with her.
Could be. Could be. Tina's a very good coach with synchro swimming.
Yeah. It's nice to have all these great Canadian players here for the pairs and fours and the singles next week. The people of Regina are extremely lucky to be able to watch the caliber of bowls that have been played this week. Very good bowl there from Anne-Marie. Just in behind the jack, cutting down. I believe BC's still lying the 1, but a very good job cutting it down.
So BC's sitting pretty here.
No, not a big adjustment needed from Anne-Marie from her first one. She just a few feet through, but in very good position.
Oh, beautiful shot.
Great adjustment, well played.
Putting a little bit of pressure there on Emma, but she just needs to tap the red one, grab the jack. Lots of options there for her. Just needs to be up into it.
What's the saying? If you're down, be up?
Yeah, gotta be up when you're down. Good question there, Jane. Why do you think some provinces manage to have an ED but others don't? Is it primarily a funding issue? Before I answer that, do you know which 3 provinces have an ED?
I'm going to take the easy one first because I know it. We'll go Saskatchewan.
Yeah, yeah.
Ontario?
Nope.
Oh, boy. BC?
Nope. I know, right?
You've got me because those were the ones that I would definitely would have thought had them.
Well, it's funny, though, because another one of them is actually here competing.
Nova Scotia has one?
Nope.
No?
She's actually, I want to say first place in women's pairs right now.
Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
So Saskatchewan, Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
Manitoba.
You got it. There's the 3. That's funny how many guesses it took you to get that. You're almost out of provinces.
I was. I'm a little shocked to hear that that it isn't any of the bigger ones, comparatively speaking.
That's exactly it. That's why it's. I find it very interesting that BC and Ontario don't when they make up. Well, like 80%, 90% of all the bowlers in Canada, or whatever that stat would be. But to get back to Jane's question, why do some provinces have one but others don't? I can't speak for sure, but I want to say that most of the EDs that are with Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta are part-time. So it's not a full-time gig. It's I believe that the one with Manitoba and the one before Tina did part-time with bowls and part-time with another sport. So they were ED for two different sports and split their time that way. So you might be ED with bowls in the summer and then maybe ED with, like, I don't know, curling or something in the winter. Um, and that seems to work out really, really well, actually, because you can split your time nicely between the two. And the reason I can't say for sure, because I'm not sure exactly when these three provinces would have got one. For all I know, they could have been around for the past 80 years, and how that started is well before my time. But a big reason why some of the other provinces don't have one is, in fact, a funding issue. The cost that goes into having an ED is, to be fair, it's a worthwhile expense, but it is an expense that you'd have to start. So when you're managing your budget, whether you're BC, Ontario, whatever province you are, to now factor in an extra 20, 30, 40,000, whatever the cost of the ED is, it's irrelevant. It's still a big cost that you now have to factor in and find the funding from somewhere. And where's that going to come from? I can't speak for all the players in all the provinces, but if you tell them, hey, we're going to go into a huge deficit, or hey, you're now going to all have to raise your membership dues by $50 for the next ever to cover this ED, most of them are going to go up in arms over such a huge increase. So funding is for sure a concern, and it's difficult because the bigger the province, the stricter the rules are for getting funding. Speaking of my semi-limited knowledge of Ontario, something as simple as lottery funding, getting funding from the casino, it's not as easy as just saying, hey, we're a sport, give us money. You have to fill out massive, extensive amounts of paperwork. That funding can only go to very specific things, and it's capped, so you can't even, it's not unlimited. It's not able to be used for anything and everything. So funding is for sure a huge issue, but that being said, it's definitely needed. I would love to see every province get a part-time ED. I know that the knowledge that they bring, the amount of experience that they bring is well worth its weight in gold, and that was actually spoken to at the banquet last night. Or not last night, on whatever that first night would have been. Wednesday night, Tuesday night, whatever the night the banquet was. What day of the week is it today? I have no idea.
For me, playing in a province that has one, if I was to go to one that didn't have one and they asked my opinion, the first thing I would say is yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things. I ran into a little bit of issues when I was in BC regarding some things. I was able to call Tina. I didn't have to worry about it. All I had to worry about was playing. Everything was done for me in a sense of, we'll get it fixed. We're good to go. Everything's great. So it went from one of those things where if I would have had to look after that myself, my focus on playing would have not necessarily been there. The fact that you have somebody that's knowledgeable to help you when you're at an event, but also to help you leading up to the event, it's just a fantastic thing.
And me being biased because I work at the office of BCB, it is 1,000 times easier when I have to communicate with the province if I can go straight to the ED and get answers, or say here, ask questions, what have you. When I work with provinces who don't have an ED, it's a volunteer, and volunteer turnover is pretty drastic. It's almost always someone new every year, so then I have to go through the whole process of, here's what I'm going to do, here's what you need to do, here's what I'm expecting, here's timelines, here's whatever. But when you have an ED, you lay it out once, and then it's smooth sailing for the rest of the year, the next 5 years, or however long they're there. For sure, it'll make a huge difference for provinces who don't have them, and Jane's saying it'd be super interesting to find out how to get funding for EDs. That's totally province specific. I believe that there are probably some guidelines or funding criteria out there through Ministry for Recreation and Sport, or Heritage, or whatever is in your specific province. So I can't say there's one surefire answer for how to get funding for an ED. I can't just make up a document and say, here, do X, Y, Z, and you're done. You would have to go and talk to your local government, really, your provincial Ministry for Heritage and Sport, or whatever the actual ministry is in your province.
Definitely something that I would say is worthwhile for every province to look into. On our rink here, it looks like Sue has 2 great bowls again,
Mm-hmm.
situated right around the jack. I would expect Anne Marie's bowl to be here.
I wish there were an easy way to make it so to get an ED. Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? I wish there was an easy way to increase our funding levels too. I wish there was an easy way to do everything, but unfortunately, it's not usually the case. That's the one thing with the time period that we're in right now is that everything's very political, very organized, and a whole lot of paperwork and
Extremely difficult.
extremely difficult to do pretty much anything nowadays. So
We're very fortunate that we've had the ED as long as we have. I think that's one thing that you'll never see us get rid of because we've had it for so long and
Mhm.
how important it is to our province. But trying to get that for another province right now, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Mhm.
With Jane commenting, I hope it's something that she can take forward, and I'd love to see BC and these provinces that have the amount of people, the amount of talent, also have the support of an ED.
Mhm. Mhm. It makes life a lot easier on your volunteers. Your board doesn't need to do quite so much. Your committees don't need to do quite so much. But that being said, it can also have a negative impact, counter impact, I guess, is that then everybody loves to just blame it on one person, and it gets very stressful for whoever that ED is, because now anything that goes wrong in the sport in your province, any complaints you have, are now directed to one person who has to take a whole lot of criticism that's rightly or wrongly now just thrown on their plate. That's something that I've noticed, and that's unique, not unique to our sport, but that deals with pretty much every sport, is that the ED gets criticized way too much for stuff that's out of their control.
The wrong people get the blame. But it just goes back. I wasn't here on the Wednesday. I was listening to Jake and the guys you had on with you about the growing the game. I think that's one of the things that when you're looking at growing the game, what are some of the benefits that I think we can take something each from every province. I think every province here does something extremely well,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
if you could kind of take that one thing that every province does well and turn it into something for everybody, our game would be in a great spot. It's just a matter of finding those things and all of us working together for the right reason and the right goal, and that's to make the game of bowls better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Touched on this in an earlier broadcast. I know Jane was listening because she said it'd be a great idea to have templates. But one thing I want to get into the habit of is getting clubs to start developing big picture plans of where they want to be 5 years from now. And as far as I'm aware, I don't know if I've been to many clubs where they actually have a 5-year plan. Most clubs I've been to don't even have a 1-year plan for what they're doing this year. They just sort of say, well, here's what we want to do, but it's not formalized or written on paper. It's just people talking, saying, yeah, I'd love to do that. And whether it ends up happening, who knows?
I feel very fortunate. I belong to one of the most prosperous clubs, I would say, in the country that is doing things extremely well with a Wednesday night league. I belong to Newtown in Saskatoon.
Yes.
What they have done over the last 5 years
Mm-hmm.
is absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Walking into a green on a Wednesday night, seeing 96 people out throwing bowls, it's one of the most amazing things that I've seen in a long time. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's one thing to come to a national and you see all the friends that we've made over the years that are here, and it's a great sight. But to walk into a club, teams wearing shirts. I know their team name was Lawn and Order, and they had the shirts out. And I can't. You look at all the teams. They have fantastic names, revolving around the world of bowls or something like that. And it's one of those things that I looked at my friend Fran Scott, who's running the league, and I walked by her and I said, Fran, this is what's going to save our game. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of, not just from a financial standpoint, but the amount of people that you have out there, and a lot of these players who've never picked up a bowl, just the natural talent, and you can just see the amount of fun they're having. You know that they're going to come out and start playing more bowls.
A lot of that, you sort of touched on that, is it's fun, and that's something that could probably get into a lot of trouble saying this, but a lot of clubs, it's really not that fun anymore because they're so fixated on rules and following proper etiquette and proper attire and what have you that when there's too many rules, it's really not as fun anymore. So if you're trying to attract that younger crowd, 20s, 30s, 40s, you got to have music, you got to have food, you got to have drinks, you got to have a whole lot of other things to actually make it fun. Not many people want to come out and try a sport where they have to read a 70-page manual on all the rules and don't actually get to really do anything because they get criticized by all the members for not doing it properly. It's just, not that fun anymore. So relaxing, easing up on the rules for a fun night, making it more social, that's something that isn't easy to do, but as you said with your Wednesday night rec league, it's one way to get new people out and trying the sport.
They have measures. I don't know. I went to 3 league nights just to kind of hang out and see what was going on and help out where I could. And I don't know if I seen 3 measures come out. It was more of a, no, it looks like you have shot. Let's go through our bowls. Let's just have a good time. And it was really exciting for me the first night. I went, it was a couple nights in, just to see the excitement around the people. I mean, somebody on the far green made a shot. You heard they made a shot. There was excitement. There was fun. And it was one of those things I kind of said to Alex and Fran. I said, it might be a little tough for players that play in the provincial events like us to play in a league like that consistently because we're so used to wanting the rules played how they are. But to see people enjoying the game that much, it almost brought it back to me going, this is why I play. Suddenly it became less about how many provincial titles I have and how many nationals I want to go to, and it became more about having fun again and seeing these people have the fun. Ever since then, going out on a bowling green, for me, I'm having fun. The 2 young Saskatchewan boys over on the 3rd rink against Pat Bird have brought it back. They were down quite a bit, 7-7 after 7.
Carter and Watson are playing catch-up there with Pat and John. That'd be a fun game to watch.
Not surprised those boys don't give up anything.
But that being said, this is no slouch of a game either. This is some good quality bowls on this rink.
The ladies are playing well.
There's a beautiful shot there. Loving how active Jane is here on Facebook. She's been sending me some messages quite well here. Keep it up. I love having a bit of a dialogue, bit of a communication with someone who's at least watching the game.
Absolutely.
Lets me know that I'm not just talking to nobody, or just you, I guess.
I was going to say, it's fun talking to you, but it's nice having some people out there with us.
Yes, exactly. Catching up on some of the comments Jane sent me, getting funding at the national level to profile the leading practices across the sport. Must be a way to get funding for something like this to develop best practices, especially if it could be linked to supporting newcomers or something, not typical funding source. That's, don't know how to properly phrase that. There's really not that many federal grants available for us to access that we could do on a daily basis, simply because our workload of what we need to do is already so overloaded that, to be honest, it sounds like a cop-out answer, but frankly I just don't have a whole lot of time to devote to what needs to be done to apply for a successful grant and then do everything that is expected of it. So there are a few grants available that we could tap into. They're not worth a whole lot of money, and the amount of work required to complete the project is substantial. So yeah, there's options there, I guess, but what we would really need then is more people to actually do it, just because my workload's already full enough. Anna's is overflowing, and Matt's beyond capacity as well. So to be honest, we need more people. But that being said, we need more funding to have more people. So it's kind of a catch-22 in that sense. But I will say that there is, I guess, potentially a funding source we could tap into is the Federal New Horizons grant, which is something every club can tap into. That's 25 grand to help. I think it's, want to say, seniors programs or something like that. So that would be really tricky for us to word that for something that would help out clubs, because then we would be stereotyping all of the lawn bowling clubs across Canada as strictly for seniors, which isn't really the image we want to promote. So I'm not sure if we'd really be able to get away with putting that in a grant application. But it's definitely something clubs can use, since every club that I've seen or heard of does have at least a couple dozen seniors included in their membership.
I know Nutana and Mayfair. I belong to Mayfair and Saskatoon as well, and I know both those clubs over the last few years have been successful in retaining some grants and using them for some improvements and some things. And it's a lot of work at that level, but the benefit has definitely come through and shown in a very positive way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, you walk into the Nutana Lawn Bowling Club, it has a nicer kitchen than my house has. But they've done a lot of the right things when it comes to the grants and doing things to promote the club in ways that the funding is coming in. I know they've had to do some things with some grants, but they don't have to rely heavily on the grants to do what they're doing, because they've done the things that they've needed to with membership and with the club's activities and things like that.
That's a good question there, Jane. Is there a demographic profile of clubs across the country? Like, has a survey been done of all clubs and their members? Yeah, we actually sent out a survey earlier this summer to every club. We wanted them to answer a bunch of questions, and it's tricky because our demographic, a lot of them aren't willing to share personal information, whether it's because they're scared of, privacy concerns on the internet, whether it's just because they prefer not to answer, whatever the cause may be. So we can ask questions like that, but we can't force them to answer or to answer truthfully either. So we did send out a survey to every club. I don't know if we got every club to answer, but I think we got quite a few. Of the 250 odd clubs there are, I think we had something like 200 or 180 or something like that answered. So I mean, we got good feedback on it. I don't know the results off the top of my head, because we asked a lot of questions, like how often is your club being used? How do you generate funds? What do you do for a typical night on the summer? How often do your club members come down to your club? Are they there one night a week, 5 nights a week, what have you? What percentage would you say are competitive? Which percentage would you say are just social? There's a whole lot of questions we asked, so I don't know those results off the top of my head, I'm afraid.
It'd be interesting to see.
It's pretty typical, to be honest. Nothing really blew me away. If you were to guess what the average club is like, it's pretty much the same across the country, really.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a few anomalies, but average is average is average.
Yeah.
Well, the results, we work with a good question. Jane's asking what happens to the results. So we work with a group called Sport for Life. They work with every sport in Canada, every recognized sport in Canada, I guess, to help, the name of their group says it all, Sport for Life, to help sports grow and be accessible, adaptable for all Canadians. And so we have had access to one of their experts, and to develop a LTAD activation plan. And what this LTAD is, long-term athlete development, and that really just means keeping people involved in the sport for life. So we developed a big picture 5-year plan of things we'd like to accomplish, and we're gonna have to work hard on that. I'm not sure if I can list everything that we plan on doing over the next 5 years, because it's extensive, but rest assured that we took those results into consideration, and we're developing how we're gonna work on that, I guess, how to help clubs grow. And that's part of why my job title changed. I used to be technical coordinator. Now I'm Bowls Development Officer, which means instead of just coordinating stuff, I'm actually looking at how to grow the game, how to work with clubs and help them not just survive but thrive. So
The most important part of our game right now is growing everything and heading in the right direction. I know a lot of clubs. One of the clubs I grew up playing in, I started out Moose Jaw, and you don't see the numbers that you used to. Mayfair, you don't see the numbers that you used to, and it's a constant work in progress that I know, especially at Mayfair being part of the club, that they're doing some things to try to grow their membership and grow what they're doing at their greens, and it's nice to see.
And Sue Hall is just putting on a clinic here while we've been babbling on and on about the life of bulls in Canada. The game actually in front of us here, Sue Hall is just...
It's absolutely incredible. She came to me before and she was nervous about being on this rink, and I don't think those nerves lasted very long.
Came to play, but that being said, Kathy Myketten here has two absolutely beautiful bulls there on the side as well. This is a very good battle of the leads.
Both these teams have played very well.
Just inside.
Finished in a good spot. Alina's asking for this bull to just come up and rest on the inside.
It's a bit of a larger target there. Lots of bulls or jacks to hit. She's coming up just inside. Probably decent weight for what Lena was asking for, I would think.
Absolutely. No harm in those two bulls. In great spot, great coverage.
Laurie did a good job of getting some back bulls there.
I don't want to say it too loud, but I don't know if there's too much harm coming in on the back end here with draw weight. Usually every time I say that to my teammates, I mess it up.
Very good effort there.
Great spots.
Kind of surprised that Emma didn't call for opposite hand to try to match that other blue bull back there.
I agree with you there, and I'm not surprised to see Nova Scotia playing the hand that they are. Bull or jacks going to be nothing but positive for them with the kind of weight that they're asking for.
I don't think that Cheryl's coming up here. Yeah, that's a bit of a nuisance bull there now.
Yeah, it looks like that will force Anne Marie to make the switch.
And that's a much more difficult shot now that she switched hands. Not a mile away though. Almost got a good result out of that.
Weight was pretty good on that.
So I think I would probably play the same hand if I'm Emma and see if I can trail the jack back a little bit and squeeze 3 out of this. Could even squeeze it back a little bit further and possibly grab 4 even, depending on where the jack goes.
Yeah, I like playing that hand a lot.
Now's a chance, I think, to get greedy. The only downside is that if it goes all the way back, Nova Scotia's the 2 furthest back bulls, but I wouldn't be expecting her to play that kind of weight.
Just even a couple feet through.
Yeah,
Even
2 feet through I think is ideal, and she is playing this hand.
looks pretty.
Not a
good.
mile away. Not a mile away. Oh, beautiful
Just
bowl.
like that.
Just like that. Good for 3. What a shot.
From now on, we'll just draw them up and she can make them.
Yeah, exactly. We call it, you make it.
Incredible bowl there by Emma.
So now it's tricky for Lena. I think she actually needs to throw some weight into this. I don't think you're going to be able to draw that off. You're going to have to try to pop the jack out to the side. If you get the right bounce and it squirts to the right, our right, I guess, left on the screen. Oh, she is throwing weight.
Oh, great shot.
Hey, jack to the tee. Nova Scotia's lying 2. Thank you very much.
Great shot. The nice thing for Emma is there's quite a bit of room to draw.
Mm-hmm.
The nice thing for Lena, there's quite a bit of room to draw.
Well, see, here's the thing, though. Emma needs to think about where her bowl is going to land because Lena has last shot. So if her bowl is wide out in the open, Lena can just pick it and get 2, and if she stays 3. So Emma's going to need her bowl to either be like right on the jack or sort of buried behind some of the junk in front.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Emma play the backhand here. There's a lot of clutter out in front, just around the clutter, and should be pretty safe in there.
This looks like it should be good enough for 1. But that's dangerous, though. That's way out on the side. I think that Lena can probably pick that.
And after playing the upweight on the previous shot here, I would almost prefer that she stayed with that and came through and picked that out for the 2.
Mm-hmm. So Anne Marie was calling for a draw, which, to be fair, there's a lot of space to draw there. But Lena's going to come down and take a look, and I'm wondering if Lena's going to say, hey, why don't I pick it? But we'll see. I don't know Lena's strategy well enough to know if she's more comfortable as a draw player or as likes to play some weight. I'm not sure. Based off her last bowl, I'd be tempted to say she likes to play weight, but
that's where Cam learned how to throw it. Although if that's not the case, I'd like to see Cam tweet in and say that that's not who he learned it from. She is setting up for the backhand.
But is it a draw or a drive? I think that's a draw. It's an aggressive draw.
Aggressive, yeah.
But I think it was just a draw.
Yeah, would have definitely needed, even to move the bowl in far enough, would have needed another 10 to 15 feet worth of weight.
Yeah, that kind of weight would not have moved the bowl far enough. So I think that was just a draw. They're going to have a very long measure here. From this angle, it looks like it's Emma's bowl, but
I've got a dime in my pocket saying it's a point for BC.
Well, I agree with you on that, so I'm not going to take you up on that bet. Dwayne asking, how are the athletes holding up to the compressed schedule? Good question. So there has been a lot of comments saying that 3 games a day is long, it's hard. The first day was the worst because it was 31 degrees Celsius and hot, so a lot of the players took a lot longer. Some of the games timed out, which meant they were playing slow, and everybody was hot, tired, and sweaty at the end of that day. But day 2 was a little bit cooler, and on top of that, players played much, much faster. Didn't get nearly as many complaints or upset players on day 2, and today's been similar. It was just downright cold this morning. And again, play has been relatively quick. I don't know how many games have timed out, if any, and I haven't heard as many complaints. But that being said, yes, a lot of people would much rather go back to having 2 games a day, but it's a fickle thing because we're looking to shorten up the schedule a little bit, make things a little more affordable for everyone by cutting down days. And it also kind of further emphasizes one of the things that everybody kept saying, hey, why don't we send the winners of our championships to compete internationally? Well, here's the reason. When you play internationally, you're playing for 2 weeks straight, 3 games a day. Games are longer than this, hotter than this, more difficult than this. If you're struggling with this now, there's no way you're going to be able to do well internationally.
And that's the thing. The only time that I've heard, and I unfortunately wasn't here for the hottest day to kind of get a feel of that, but that's the only time I've heard anybody really say anything about the 3 games a day is when you're playing in those 31 to 34 degree conditions with no wind that you in Saskatchewan, you either get 34 degrees and no wind, or you get cold and wind. There's usually nothing in between. On those hot days, I think those will be the only time that you'd see it be real tough.
And to be fair, we are trying to make this more of a very professional sport. And if you look at any other sport, they're long, grueling days. It doesn't matter whether it's baseball, soccer, badminton. You play a lot of games. You play for a long time. The championships are a grueling process. That's just how it is. I don't know if we really need to be any different. Yeah, we have been in the past, but that doesn't mean that we need to drag out a championship over 7 days just because people don't want to play more than 1 or 2 games a day.
I think the biggest comparable that a lot of people would say is the curling schedule compared to ours. And if you look at the cash circuit, the Grand Slam, they play on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or sometimes Wednesday, and they're playing. If you're playing in those, you're playing 3 games a day a lot of times with trying to make it to the champions. So you're playing. You're playing your 10, 11, 12 games in a 3-4 day span. So, I mean, it's one of those things that if people are going to want to compare to another sport and you see what they're going through, it's kind of the same thing in my mind that if you're playing at that level, you're going to want to play kind of in something like this.
It's funny that you mentioned that too with curling. I'm not sure how many people know this, but majority of the curlers who are at the highest level, whether it's the Brier or the cash circuit, I guess as you called it, they're paid professionals. That's totally different from our sport.
Yeah.
Our people are still working Joes, retired, what have you. When you're a paid professional, you're training, you're practicing, you're playing every single day, you're practicing every single day, training, working out, what have you. That's 2 totally different apples to oranges that you're trying to compare now, which further sort of emphasizes why we're not sending the winners of our majors to international events. We don't have paid professionals in this sport. That model's not the same.
What I wouldn't do to be able to bowl every day and make a check.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice?
No more 6:30 in the morning till 5 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock at night. I mean, my coworkers would be happy because they would not have to hear me talk about bowls anymore. But
here's a beautiful bowl.
Great bowl.
Great bowl by Anne-Marie Seidman.
She's played very well. She's a lot of times her bowls have ended up in very good spots. Maybe not the results she was looking for, but they've been usable bowls all game long. Another great bowl.
Just through. Identical bowl for you from Anne-Marie. You just take off a foot and you're laughing. How do we get to the place of paid professionals in this sport? That's a great question. Well, grow the sport. Need a heck of a lot more members or participants, I guess. I don't know off the top of my head how many members or participants are in soccer, baseball, hockey, all the pro sports, but I'd have to guess it's hundreds of thousands, not just 13,000 that we have or 14,000, whatever the number is at this year. You got to grow the sport. A also have to make it much more exciting to put on TV. One thing that I would like to see is shorter ends, very much like curling. 8-end game, that's way more exciting to watch. You can sit down, watch that in an hour, and be done, as opposed to a 2.5-hour trek of an 18-end game of bowls is not quite the same level of excitement as you would get in a much shorter game, which is something most players hate if you're a lawn bowler, and I can speak for myself as well. An 8-end game sounds not as fun, but it's much more visually appealing.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, and that's the thing is, I think you have to, if you want to get to the paid side of things, the professional side of things, you have to look at where we are and go to what Australia. I mean, they've got their leagues that they have on TV. That the great Ryan Bester is playing in. I mean, it's all a matter, I think, of the keyword that I've heard you say for the last couple of days: grow the game. Once we get to the level that we have the people out playing, then you're gonna have that many more people that want to watch.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also hand in hand with that, with the getting more money and getting sponsors and whatnot, is the number of people. So everyone keeps saying, oh, Bowls Canada needs more sponsors. Well, that's not really feasible yet, because we only have 13,000 bowlers. So what kind of a sponsor is going to say, here, take $10,000 so I can reach 13,000 people? I could go to a local soccer club in Oakville and reach more than that at one club. Why would I sponsor an entire national organization and get like next to no coverage? That's a waste of my money if I'm a for-profit organization. So we need to get more people so that they can get more views, more bang for their buck. And that's something that every province I go to, every club member I talk to says we need to get more sponsors, but that's just not a feasible option for us right now because we don't have enough members. That's something most people don't really understand, is that sponsorship means that they're getting something back. It's not a donation. That's a totally different word. Donation is where you just give away money for free. You don't expect anything in return. But a sponsorship, you're expecting something back. You're expecting to grow your brand or get people to buy your product or your service or whatever it is. So to get a sponsor, you need to actually offer something in return. And right now, Bowls doesn't have a whole lot that we can really offer back to make it worth a lot of money. Like, yeah, we do have some stuff, but it's not going to be $1 million sponsorship plan. Like, that's just not going to happen. Not yet.
I know Alex Scott and I've been talking quite a bit the last few weeks, few months, about the same kind of thing, about where can you go to get the game at that excitement level, and to get it where there is a little bit of money involved. And for example, they just played, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the Blue Opal, I believe they
Blue
called
Opal
it,
Pairs,
in Australia. And we were talking about, wouldn't it be great to, put out a tournament, whatever the case. I mean, not a lot of people in Canada are going to say, here's $1,000 for my buy-in to a tournament. But have it so, you can get some of the top players to play this tournament. And I said, well, that would be a great thing to do, but on the growing the game side and to get people interested, it'd be cool to land some sort of, get the coverage, get the webcast going, try to get some coverage on TV of something like that, and get people involved that way. I mean, you were talking earlier, a lot of things in life is political and different things like that. On the other side of things, a lot of things to do is with money.
Yep.
So that you started mentioning the money aspect of things, then people are all of a sudden drawn. I mean, that's the question I get asked all the time. I love the game. There's nothing more I'd rather be doing than out on a green, being around a green. And a couple of my coworkers cornered me the one day and they said, all you talk about is bowls. You love this game. Yep. What's the money? Where's the money in this? You just, I bought 2 new sets of bowls last year, paying to go to these different places. I said, where's the money in it for you? I said, I'm paying to do this because I love to do it. And that was their reaction too, is why, if you're wanting to play and you're playing and spending this money, wouldn't it be more fun if you're making money doing it? So it'd be nice for there's a lot of guys in Canada that would say, yes, we want to do it. I mean, you take for example the three young ladies you've watched out here play
Mm-hmm.
on this
Mm-hmm.
rink today. The talent there, the talent that was in Winnipeg last week. It'd be nice to see in a few years where these kids get to be on TV doing what they like and make a little bit of money doing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we're not in the same readiness that Australia
Mm-hmm.
is in. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's crazy seeing what is going on over there, and I look forward to the day that Canada is known as a bowls country as much as Australia is. But there's a lot of work that we need to do to get there.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of the right people in place.
I agree, but it is a slow process. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And so, to answer your question there, Jane, is growing the game the top priority of BCB's plan? That's a yes and no question. Yes, it is one of our top priorities, but again, that doesn't mean it happens overnight. We still have the day-to-day stuff that we need to do, which sucks up a lot of our time. So it's not like I can just stop everything I'm doing and then go and dedicate my time to helping local clubs and do that 24/7. There is still a lot of government mandated things we need to do. Like, we need to have a national team. That's just part of being a recognized sport. We have to do that. And to have a national team, that means you have to have coaching, you have to have this, that, and the other. We also have to offer national championships for all of you who would like to be here, stuff like this. That's something that would blow up in our face if we tried to stop doing that. But again, that takes a lot of time to prepare stuff like this. We need to have a coaching program, an officiating program. So, I mean, there's a whole lot of other stuff that goes into running a national sport. So it's not quite as simple as saying, put everything on hold and let's go grow the game. But that being said, we are doing a lot to try to help that. So we are developing new resources. We are trying to help clubs grow. We've developed a few new posters, like how to encourage new members, because one of the complaints we get a lot is some of the club members are not the most encouraging people. So we've designed a poster to say, here's how you should interact with new bowlers. You should be inviting, you should be saying nice things and what have you. So I'm also been working on a Learn To program for we're piloting it for youth this year, but it's also going to be for adults and seniors. But a Learn To Bowl program is also a way to help clubs grow, because a lot of them don't really have a set way of how they introduce new people to the sport. So we want to introduce it in a fun and exciting way. And these are all resources that we're working on, things that we're trying to do to help clubs grow. And yeah, it may seem small and we can only do so much here at a time, but you got to start somewhere. And we are seeing promising results. If you look at the membership numbers from 5 years ago to today, Nova Scotia has grown substantially. Saskatchewan's grown a little bit. Alberta's grown substantially. So we are seeing growth in numbers. It's kind of frustrating because some of the bigger provinces are declining, so it overshadows the growth we're seeing in the smaller provinces. But we are seeing some growth. It is exciting, and at the end of the day, you just sort of have to be patient. It's not going to happen overnight. You can't just go from 13,000 up to 1 million. Like, that's just unrealistic. But it is happening. We are working on it, and we're going to continue to work on it. And one of the big things that we have is our 5-year plan, our strategic plan that we're working on and making a new one, because our last one just expired. So part of that, whenever it does come out, you'll have to take a look through it and see exactly what we're trying to do for the next 5 years. And you'll see a lot of grow the game material in there.
It's one of those things when it comes to growing the game. I mean, we all want to see it at the highest level, but I had a coach tell me in 5-pin, and I've been told out here many times when I was frustrated with what I was doing in my skill, Rome wasn't built in a day. You need to work at it.
Yep.
And that's kind of where myself from Saskatchewan, I would say you can definitely see some improvements that are happening, and we're working in the right direction, but it's not something that we can expect just to happen quickly. A lot of us, I mean, I don't feel like one of the young guys anymore now when I walk into a club, but it's one of those things that from where I started to where I am now, seeing a little bit of the declining in memberships in clubs, but seeing now where things are starting to change around and some of the things are changing for the betterment for the game. It's really nice, and it's a work in progress, and I do think we have a lot of great people that are willing to work and that are going to work to get the game where we need to get it.
And further to your comment there, Jane, no, I know you're not complaining. If my tone on here came out as exasperated, I apologize. It's just being in the office, I get so many frustrating emails and phone calls from people complaining that eventually I get the same question over and over, and so you can only answer the same question so many times before you start to just get tired of doing it. So I apologize if my tone came off a little not ideal, but no, I appreciate that you're just excited to hear what we're doing, because yeah, it is exciting times at Bowls Canada. We are trying to make a difference, and having been a bowler for 17, 18 years, whatever it is now for me, having seen for the first 10 to 12 years Bowls Canada do not a whole lot, simply because they only had one staff member. So I mean, what can you do with one person, really? It's really exciting for me to be able to see how much of a difference that I can actually make, with provinces, with clubs, with players. Oh, what a shot!
Great
What
ball
a
by
shot from Lena! Wowza! Speechless on that one.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, no, it is exciting. It's a really good time right now for Bowls. I feel like we're almost positioned in a spot where we can really take off. And there's going to be a few clubs, I think, over the next few years, and Natan is one of them with their 130 member rec league or whatever it is on Wednesday nights. That's a really great example that I think a lot of clubs can replicate. Maybe not every club, because some clubs need work to get there first. Some clubs need to actually be self-sustaining before they can just take off like that. But I think that we're slowly getting there. Another 3, 5, 10 years, I could easily see a lot of clubs jumping from membership instead of 120 up to 300 to 400 of participants, where they have, I don't know if you'd classify them as members on your rec league, but I mean people who are consistently coming one night a week to compete, or to play, or to just socialize, what have you. I could easily see a lot of clubs going in that direction, and that's a good sign.
And it really is, and the nice thing from that is they are bowling their one night a week, but you're always going to get more people that are very keen on the game, that are coming out more. I know there's a couple that started in the rec league, and now they're playing in league draws. They're playing in league tournament or club tournaments. So you do see a benefit from the leagues on a membership standpoint, where you do get some people that come out and become full members and are active members of the club.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's only going to get better. I mean, the Nutana League, it's crazy. It's basically books up within less than 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
We could almost run 4 nights a week, and I'm sure they would fill up. It's just it's a really, really hot commodity right now in Saskatoon, and the people that are putting it on are fantastic people that care a lot about the game and care a lot about the direction and a lot of them are very proud of what they've been able to accomplish, and going forward what they're going to be able to do, what other clubs can do to replicate and help sustain their clubs.
One of the things that I've been working with a few clubs and have been having a few chats, is making an impact in your community. Using the Regina Club here as an example, where the city was trying to sort of shut them down not too long ago. I believe that the club here is on city land, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
From what I hear, almost every club in Canada is, or a majority of them are. And at some point or another, whether it's this year, next decade, next century, eventually the city's probably going to come a knocking and say, hey, we want to redevelop your land and turn it into a skyrise, a parking lot, a park, what have you. And so when they do that, how can you defend yourself as a club and say, well, no, you can't do that because we have an impact in the community? Right now, a lot of clubs only have 50, 60, 70 members, but they're on land that's worth in excess of like $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. So from a city perspective, why on earth are we using $3 million worth of land to service 50 people? That's a terrible investment.
Right.
So what I want to work with clubs on doing is getting them to have more of an impact on the community. And using Ernie Mead as an example here in Saskatchewan, he's got a fundraiser where he's working with, I want to say it's Kids Sport. That's the tent that's right behind us here. So it's a fundraiser for a charitable organization to help get kids active. And I think that's just an absolutely fantastic idea. Because now if the city comes knocking and trying to shut down the club, you can say, well, no, wait, because we raise money for this kids sport group every year and we're impacting the lives of hundreds, thousands, dozens, whatever it is, of kids or other people in the community. And so that's a great start from Ernie, a great initiative. I would like to see clubs across Canada partner up with more organizations. There's one club in Ottawa I'm working with to develop a partnership with them and the Big Brothers Big Sisters Foundation, where I'm hoping that they're going to be able to develop some sort of a partnership where maybe they'll get Big Brothers and Big Sisters out lawn bowling or what have you, or maybe they'll just have a fundraiser every year and donate proceeds to it. I'm not sure. But the more organizations or groups that you work with, the better it's going to be in the long run, because one, it's just a good thing to do to help other organizations, other people, but two, when the city or someone comes knocking trying to shut you down, you can say, well, no, we're having a huge impact on the community. We're actually helping these people, and they're going to be able to come back and say, yeah, don't shut down the lawn bowling club because they help us out, and you have a bigger reach that way. So whatever the charity or organization you work with, I don't think it really matters, but the fact that you are partnering with someone is can make a world of difference.
Well, that's a tough thing to further your point on the land in the city. I mean, if you look behind us, there's a multi-million-dollar facility for some sports team. What is it? The Riders?
Yeah, something like
Something
that.
that we all love a little too much in this province. But if you look at a lot of the things here, this is a really, really bad spot for parking.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not here anymore,
Mm-hmm.
they got some more room for houses. They've got some more room for parking lots for
Mm-hmm.
for the events at Mosaic Stadium. That, you know, it's a busy venue.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I mean, I know I'm biased, but I think with what Ernie's doing and with what this club should mean to the city,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's been here forever. The amount of people that we've had come through the gates from other province to experience Regina,
Mm-hmm.
to lose this experience of nationals every so often that we have it here, I don't think that's beneficial to the city at all. And I think that's the biggest thing, is us showing the value to the city of what these events mean to our community.
Well, it's kind of funny that I found out that there's a grant for Ontario when they host national championships. They can get up to like 20 grand or something like that. But in order to do that, they have to prove a lot of things and show that it is a national championship, how many people are going to be coming, how long are they staying, what have you. And one of the things they have to do is an economic impact analysis. And what that means is how much money will the area make and the province make by having so many people come in from a province. And there's a really handy tool that I now have access to where I can do that for pretty much any province. And it shows, if 120 people are coming to your province and staying there for 4 or 5, 6 days, how much of a net impact that has on the local economy. And I think that's a fantastic tool, because now you can actually go to your city or your mayor, your town council, saying, hey, don't shut our club down, because when we host nationals, it brings in X number of dollars or what have you. So when hosting championships, although I got that tool now specifically for Ontario, I think I'm going to start doing that for every province who's hosting a national championship, because it's a useful number, and it may not be that much, but it's still something that wasn't there before. It's worthwhile hosting a national championship, but it's nice to be able to quantify it.
Absolutely. As we talked earlier in the game, about the shadows down on the south end of the green,
Mm-hmm.
Lena was just calling out to her teammates that she's starting to be able to see the shadows of the players a little more, impacting on
Mm-hmm.
the lines and the different things right now as we move later into this game.
It's interesting because the shadows have definitely sort of receded down near there, but now the player shadows is much bigger, larger.
That may be the line of the tournament.
Everybody's got to buy me a drink, and I don't drink.
Fantastic.
Oh, Lena.
My favorite story with Lena is I was 19, 20 years old, or whatever it was. Might have been 21, I can't remember. I just know I was flying into Halifax. I left Saskatchewan about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, landing late in Halifax.
Mm-hmm.
I get off the plane, and the first smiling face I see is Lena.
Yeah.
And the excitement that she had for the game, for the under 25s being there and having us there, was absolutely one of the most fun times I've had. It's really nice to see her be able to come out and compete at this level and have such a good few year span that she's had. Have to throw another shout out to Nova Scotia as well. John Seitman, and skipping in his first game, has got his team out to a pretty big lead right now. 15-5 after 15 ends. I know he'll be absolutely thrilled with how that's going.
Yeah, absolutely. Funny you mentioned that, Jane. Suggested that more clubs could have accessible programs, for example, children with autism or something like that, because they're looking for activities to do, and that's a potential opportunity that Bulls clubs could take advantage of, and there's usually some funding associated with that as well. We're actually working on developing more of a parasport program right now. We've just really just started, so I can't say we're too far along with that right now, but yeah, absolutely, getting the game to be more accessible to more diverse groups of people is absolutely something that I would love to see clubs doing. There's a great group of people that bowl now, but I mean, there's always other different groups of people that could be involved if we just made it a little bit more accessible. And I think that's something that we could all strive towards. Certainly will take a little bit of time, patience, and hard work from a few people, but making the great game of bowls that we all love more accessible to other people is definitely a positive that I would love to see more clubs pick up on.
To further that, is there, in regards to the national team, we have to have the para side of things as well? Is that correct?
No.
We do not?
So that's actually kind of an interesting point. So how do I want to phrase this? It would look much, much better if we did, but it's not necessarily a requirement because there are different organizations that look after that, kind of. I'm going to use basketball as an example. There's Canada Basketball, or Basketball Canada, whatever it is, but there's also wheelchair basketball, which is a separate organization. So Canada Basketball only looks after the national team for able-bodied athletes, whereas wheelchair basketball looks after national team for that, which would be the para side. So for us, we have the Blind Bowls Association of Canada, which is a member of whatever the international federation is, because it's not World Bowls, it's the International Federation for Blind Bowling or something like that. I can't remember what it is. And it's not quite as simple as saying, well, why don't we merge? And that's discussions we've had, and is a heck of a lot of apples, oranges, and things to compare that aren't quite the same and would be a lot of work. But we are definitely looking to expand the game to para athletes, I guess is the best way I can phrase that. And if I can't speak for certain about what other countries do, I want to say in Australia, I think that it falls under the umbrella of Bowls Australia, but for a lot of other countries it doesn't. And that's where it gets confusing, because if we take it under our umbrella, then we would have to report to two different international federations, and that's extra confusing, not to mention the funding of having now national championships for para sports, as well as having a national team for para sports, which is why it's going to be a very slow process for us to develop this para program, but it's something we want to do because it's the right thing to do, really.
Bowls is for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Looks like Nova Scotia is holding 2 at the moment, playing third bowls. Emma with my favorite call there. Whatever you see, just get something close for me.
That's kind of funny. On the rink next door, John Siteman just threw a drive, and Anne Marie is the one that's on the mat here waiting. And so one of the balls came into our rink, and she just had to step off and sort of laugh, saying, "What is my son doing there next door?"
It's great to see all the family members that are involved out here this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I could say that every year from now until 2070 is that bowls is a family sport. Every time you're here, there's always at least a handful of families, and I think that's always probably going to be the case.
Absolutely. It's nice to see on Saskatchewan B men's fours rink, we have Bokos, dad of Jordan, getting in the action a little bit and playing. Although he always says, "I'm never going to be as good as my daughter."
So Emma's throwing a little bit of weight here. Well,
I think that made it better.
Knocked a lot of stuff around. I still think it's probably 1 or 2 Nova Scotia, but now she has a little more room to draw in. You can just see the jack there and how far away those bowls are, so still probably a good, what did you say, a foot?
I
Foot and a half?
Foot around. Definitely think it's better than it was for sure. There's definitely a few more shots available. Lena was making the comment, and I think she was pretty accurate at this point, about bringing one around to the back.
I don't know if that's really necessary. I feel like she just needs another one in the head to make it a little bit tighter. Ooh, that definitely didn't help her cause. Now you can see the jack. I don't know if Emma was really going to drive at that. There were too many holes before. So I don't know if a back bowl was really that necessary. BC only had one back bowl anyway, but now she's taking a real good look at it, whether it's 1 or 2. But now that you can see the jack, I think it's just a wide open draw, really.
Play the wide hand, come along the ditch side and funnel it back in, and I think that's absolutely the shot to play for sure. This is strange. A guy from Saskatchewan and a guy from Ontario are seeing the same thing.
Don't know if she threw it out enough. I think that's coming up a little bit inside. Yeah.
Weight looked like it probably would have been pretty close.
Yeah, weight would have been somewhere in the ballpark. But, So holding 2, says Anne Marie. So pretty good chance here for Nova Scotia to get back in this game if Lena can draw another one here or even trail it a little bit. Try to get 3 or maybe even 4 out of this. Lena says she's out too far. Is that even possible on this rink?
I don't think so.
No, she just didn't have the weight.
Just the weight.
That looked like that probably would have came back nicely.
I think that line was actually pretty close to spot on.
Uno. Dos.
From here, it looks like it's only 2, but I've been wrong on the last 5 times I've said called something, so I won't. I wouldn't take that to the bank at all.
You prefer a string measure or a metal measure?
It's tough to answer that. I don't usually have the measure on me very often. I play a lot of back end, but when it's usually the string.
Yep, same.
A little more reliability. I find the metal ones I've had get the odd little wrinkle in it and don't trust it as much. Pull the string measure out anyway. Hopefully the forecast is wrong for our great players playing in the medal rounds tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't be a Saskatchewan tournament if there wasn't any of the wet stuff. I don't remember too many provincials over the last 20 years that we haven't had at least a day of rain. In 2011, when Duncan Holness and I won the men's pairs, we were pulled off the green 2 or 3 times in that tournament. We had a game that we started out where it was a nice sunny day. By end 4, it was pouring. By end 8, the sun was back out. By end 12, it was pouring again, and then finished off the last 4 in the sun.
Doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun.
It was almost like you're having hot and cold flashes. You had no idea what was coming.
Yeah.
I can't say that it was a bad thing. No, we came away with the right medal in that one, so I'll never say anything bad about that weather. But we played we played the singles here a few weeks ago. It was one of the worst winds I'd ever seen down here. It'd be nice and calm. You're on the mat. You'd release your bowl, and it'd be 15 feet short and barely inside the boundary markers. It's one thing I've always said for people: if you've never played in Regina, it's a lot of fun to play here. But if you come on a day that the wind's up, you're in for your most challenging game you've ever played. One of the most wide open clubs I've ever been to.
Mm-hmm. Bit of a loose head here shaping up so far. You know, it's interesting that in curling, the skips always put the broom down for where you need to aim without fail every time. And even when they're throwing, the vice or third will be doing the same. And if they're off by a bit, the skip knows it and says, hey, move your broom to the left or to the right, because they know exactly where they need to aim anyway. But in bowls, that kind of isn't really the case. I just saw Lena up there giving grass, I think. I wonder why that is, why bowlers just assume that like you can figure it out on your own, whereas in curling, even though it's clear that you can figure it out on your own, they still have the broom there anyway.
It's that's a great question. It's one of those too. I mean, you see, even at a club level, you try to help somebody out and give them the grass, and a lot of people, no, I can do it. And it's a lot of times when I first started playing, I was almost begging for somebody to give it to me to watch too much curling in my day. But just it's almost that it'd be at times it'd be nice to have that, especially on a tricky hand like the ladies are playing on right now. But there's definitely a little bit of confidence there. All the ladies are playing that swingy side more than they've played the straight side.
The pro hand. Yeah. I love a good big swoop. The bigger the draw, the more I like it.
It's a lot of fun. I know. This is the first year I've switched bowls. I've played the classics my whole life, and when I told John Patulli that I bought a new set of bowls, he kind of laughed. He said it's about time. But I couldn't give up on the swinging classics.
Picked up the jack and brought it with her.
Great shot.
Good shot there, Cheryl.
Personally, I like the classics or that kind of line because you can get through anything.
Oh, she's close. Oh. Yee-hoo.
Great try. This looks like a pretty good line again compared to our last bowl.
Yeah, it should be in the same ballpark. A little inside, I think.
A little tight.
A little inside, but still a pretty good place to be.
So I have to ask, after 3 days, are you sick of the prairie trains yet?
I don't mind them. Yeah, I've always really liked trains. There's actually a train track that's right behind our office, so every once in a while the office building shakes because the train's going through. But no, I'm not sick of them yet. I think they're quite entertaining to watch.
Excellent. If we asked his players the same question, I'm sure they would have a little bit different answer.
I'm sure the loudness of it when it comes out of the blue can probably be a little distracting, but
The first few years playing the game and playing here, it was definitely something that you had to get used to.
mm-hmm.
A little inside here from
Yeah,
Lena.
very inside, but if she's there, she can work off. Not quite.
Looks like a pretty good road from Emma.
Just sailed through.
Oh man. Lena's on a much better road here.
Mm-hmm. This looks much better.
And what a great bowl.
Mucho better. Lena Cameron. And Emma's going to come down and take a look.
I think that's a good choice.
Yeah, at this stage in the game, it's probably getting down to the wire. You want to make sure of what you're doing.
Not sure if you can see it from the forehand or not, but it'd almost be nice to do a little push follow through to get your 2 or 3 here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's a very doable shot. Have to get the angle perfect though, so it doesn't jam.
Yeah. Looks like Emma might be playing it on that kind of shot on the backhand here. She's fairly close. Oh, what a bowl.
Great shot. And she'll take the one and run.
That's what happens when you're the Canadian junior singles champion.
Yeah, that's right.
You should be able to draw. Looks like a few more people around for now that the sun's come out for the Saturday afternoon game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A few more spectators. A few more of the singles players have rolled in too.
That should be an exciting 24.
Yeah, you know,
field.
I'm really excited about that because for the past, 5 years, whatever it was when it was open singles, the men's side would end up getting, 30 members or so, and it would be very locally centric.
Mm-hmm.
But the women's side, you'd only end up with 10 to 12 people. It just wasn't that big of an ordeal. But now, with 24 and 24 and limiting it to however many it is per province, it seems to have that prestige factor back to it now. It's not just 10 women, you actually have 24, and it's not just 15 local players. It's a limit of, I guess, 5 for this year, which is, I think it's a much tougher pool, much tougher field now for both men and women, which should make for some very interesting games.
I really liked what has happened with the format. For the reasons you said, when I went in 2016, there was a lot of BC players playing with us being at West Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to have the representation from across Canada playing. Super excited to see the PEI jersey out on these games.
Absolutely. I'm very happy that Paul is going to be joining us. If I remember correctly, he played pairs in 2016 in Edmonton, and I was super happy to see a PEI pairs team out there too. So I briefly met him there. I don't know if he'd remember me, but super friendly guy. So very excited to have him playing in the singles.
it's nice too seeing there's a little bit of a turnover as well. They're seeing a few new names that have
Mm-hmm.
some of those provinces that we haven't seen on this scale before. It's nice to get some new people out and involved in this caliber of a game.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I was talking with Anna and Roy Riege earlier before this game, and he was asking, so what sort of comments, feedbacks have you been getting? And a lot of people absolutely hate the restrictions, and you can't play in the seniors mixed pairs if you're playing in the majors, what have you. But one of the really positive comments we've been getting from some of the smaller provinces, and even some of the larger ones too, even actually, is that we're seeing new faces here, and they're coming up and saying, we're here because we actually played down this year because we actually had a chance. In previous years, we never had a chance because it's the same person that wins every single event, and we just don't even bother entering because why would we? It's just a waste of time and effort. So now we're actually seeing more people coming out and competing because it's not the same person or the same team that's just dominating every single event. And I think that's such a huge positive that now we're exposing more people to national championships. And now that they're here, they're going to be more motivated, more inspired to actually improve their game and say, hey, we want to go back next year. We want to improve our game and do better next year. And it gets more people engaged, involved, and active in the sport. And I think that's such a positive thing. And as you said, we're seeing new faces, and I think that's a big part of it.
Well, it's exciting, and I mean, to your point of seeing the same people, a lot of times when you have the players that we had in Saskatchewan, say Keith and Jean Roney or Harriet and Marie Patuli, or you'd see them do very well, and that's no surprise. They're all very good players. This year, I'm extremely biased with who won out of Saskatchewan because he plays second for me on my fours team.
Okay.
So I'm excited that my friend and teammate Brian McMillan and his girlfriend Tracy are going to go to BC and play. And said for Brian, he loves the game, and it's only going to do better things for him going forward. And I know with the confidence that he has got from that, I know he's excited to go to BC, but I've already got a couple texts from the guys saying we can't wait to get the fours rolling next year. Once we get through the 8-month waiting for bowl season.
Waiting for bowl season. You got to get through that first. It's baffling how it's already the end of August. I can't believe how fast the summer flew by.
My next message to you in a couple weeks will be saying Happy New Year.
Probably start my retirement planning soon here then too.
Absolutely. I can't believe how fast this year has gone.
Yeah. Well, that worked out very well.
Great bowl from Anne-Marie again. She's been very steady in this game.
I think it's because she knows that Karen Barton and Tony Buckingham from Elbit in Australia are watching. Those friends from the Aussie Open, which Anne-Marie, John, and a few others have been going to for the past 3-4 years, whatever it's been now. Biggest bowls festival in the world, I'm told, down on the Gold Coast. One of these days I'm going to have to get down there to it again, because having been on Gold Coast once, it really is paradise, and I'd love to go back. It's very quickly becoming the bowls capital of the world, more or less.
Yeah, I'm excited to go down there and not only play, but see a lot of the things that are happening with the clubs. And I know when I went to the singles a couple years ago, it always crosses your mind that if you're playing bowls, you may have a chance to win. So you kind of look and see where the events are being held, and seeing the different restaurants that are associated or attached to the clubs and the different things.
Oh, great beautiful bowl. Shot from Emma.
But it's one of those things. It's incredible seeing that these clubs have a couple restaurants inside that. You go play your games and you go inside and you're able to hang out with the people you just played against right there. I mean, the one thing I will always say is I love the game. I love being on the green. I love the competition. But I think my favorite part about the game is the people. You walk in and you see familiar faces from every event.
Yeah.
We need to get some suntan lotion for our friend Derek, so we don't have those white legs to look at. And I'm only making fun of him because he does it to me every time he gets a chance. Best part of that is he didn't even know I was talking about him, and he was still making a comment.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, the clubs in Australia are huge, and a couple of the lessons learned down there is how social they make the club down there with trivia night and having a band every Friday night and what have you. And I'd love to see some of the clubs adopt those practices up here too. I mean, there's no reason why a club can't have a trivia night on a Thursday night, or hire a local band of a couple college kids come in and play a few song requests.
That'd be absolutely fantastic to see our clubs move in those directions. And I mean, I guess one of those things, you have to spend money to make money, and and to grow the game, may have to spend a little bit of money, but
Ooh, Lena's close.
very close.
Just a little bit outside. That should be a good one for BC. Likely more. Likely more.
I'm thinking probably 2 for sure, maybe
2 for
3.
sure, maybe even 3. Yeah, they picked out 2. And they both confirmed that it is just 2. So that's a 7-point game with 2 to go. You know, this is another one of those games where I feel like the third last end, that end we just played, is the most important end. The fact that BC just picked up 2 there. If Nova Scotia would have counted this, it would have been a very, very close game. And not that 7 points isn't close, but it's much more difficult to get a 3 and a 4 than it is to get a 1 and a 2.
The importance of that 14th end is, or in pairs, the 16th end is coming out quite a bit this weekend. It's one of those things, you can be within 4 or 5 after that 14th or 16th end, depending on the game. You still have a shot.
So this is a much, much longer end. They're stretching this out full length pretty much.
It'll be interesting to see what the Bulls do at that end, playing into the shadows.
Pretty good weight there.
The line almost held a little bit on that one too, compared to what they had
compared
been
to some of the swingers before. Yeah.
Coming up a little light.
Just reaching the shadows. Do you prefer long ends, short ends, or somewhere in between?
Depends on who I'm playing.
Fair enough.
I myself, if I'm just out throwing, I don't mind the medium to long, but a lot of the guys in this province play the short jacks extremely well. So our indoor singles between myself and Doug came down to jack length for the last 2 ends, for basically who was going to Vancouver. He was playing the short incredibly well, and I was playing the long well, and I threw a long jack in the first end of the tiebreak, and he scored, and then it was shorts after that. But I think, to answer your question, if I was playing on the rink that we're featuring today, I'd prefer a shorter jack out here. What's your favorite?
Oh, it's short all day. All day. The only difference will be where I place the mat, which was usually at the hog line, but again, depends who I'm playing. No, long ends is probably my weakest part of my game, so anybody who plays me, if you just play tee to tee, you're probably going to do very well against me. But one of the reasons why practice is so important is you're going to identify those weakest links and actually go out and work on it, which not something that I've done for the past 2-3 years.
It's interesting how much difference the practice makes in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Your confidence level, your comfort level, your ability to do the things you want to do.
Mm-hmm. It baffles my mind how almost every lawn bowler in Canada thinks that competition, the more you play competition, the better you're going to be, and can just ignore practice altogether.
Since my season ended, I have done more drills than I have actually playing games.
And that's really the way it should be, unless you are actually at the highest level, in which case competition then becomes very, very important. But you probably should be always practicing more than you're playing to really work on those aspects of your game, very specific aspects of your game that need work. Competition should be when you test how your practice has been and see if your practice is actually paying off.
The nice thing that we have in regards to practice is we have the tools and the knowledge in Canada to get the information you need for the different drills. And when I first started playing, it was Ernie Me that got me into it. And I don't know if I played my first game my first provincial game was 3 weeks, but I don't know if I actually played a game before the provincial started. It was all drills and fundamental stuff.
Well, it's interesting, too, because with the membership structure here, once you're a member of a club, you can come down and practice just about any time you want or whenever the club's open, which a lot of other sports don't have that luxury. Like, you can't really just go and practice hockey whenever you feel like it. Like, it's not quite the same. But with bowls, you have that luxury. And I'm going to try not to throw someone under the bus, but at the one tournament a year that I do play in, I heard one person say, I'm going to find out after this tournament if I'm better on my forehand or my backhand. And I just had to sort of bite my tongue, because you shouldn't be finding that out at a tournament. You should be finding that out when you're practicing, and then practicing and working on whichever one is your weaker. Finding out, because he decided to keep track, he was keeping stats of all his bowls throughout the tournament. Doing that during a competition, I feel, is incredibly out of place. You should already know that going into the competition, so you can say I'm better on my forehand, so I'm going to try to play forehand during this competition.
Right or wrong, that's one thing you'll never see from me, is keeping stats of my own game while I'm playing. I like to focus on what I'm doing rather than what I can work on for the next one.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I see no qualms with that. I know a lot of people get distracted by trying to keep track of stats, and that's not necessarily a good thing. But that being said, that's when a coach would come in handy to have someone keep track of stats for you, because I still feel that having those stats is incredibly important, but it doesn't necessarily need to be taken by you. It could be taken by your skip or your coach or whoever else. Somebody else on your team could do that too, for what it's worth.
Definitely something that I've had people do for me in the past. Now you're talking about somebody saying what's better, backhand, forehand. What do you prefer to play if you had the option?
I really don't have a preference. It really just comes down to what the rink's giving me. So whatever hand's the swoopier hand, the bigger draw is the hand that I'm probably going to play. If both hands are playing equal, as rarely as that happens in Canada, yeah, I don't know if I would have a preference. I'd probably just go whatever feels good on the day, to be honest. I don't know if I really have a preference. I'm sure if I were actually a competitive player still and was keeping track of stats and could tell you that, my backhand's stronger than my forehand or whatever the case might be, and then I would probably play whatever stronger, but I don't know that off the top of my head, having not seriously played for a while. How about you?
I like the backhand. It's one of those things I'll play either with the green's given to me, but for whatever reason, being a lefty with a lot of times playing the backhand, you have a lot of advantage to getting to the jack or to places that you may not necessarily get as a righty.
Very close.
Great try.
Critical end here for Nova Scotia to try to pick up a handful. You need to get more than just one here this end to really give yourself a chance.
had the right weight for the shots.
So that'll be at least one for BC, likely more. Hamann and Hahn. Duo. So that'll effectively put this game out of reach.
I don't know if the score is really indicative of the way that the two teams have played. Both teams have made some great shots, and both teams have had some near misses. And
there's a quick panorama there shot. Thank you, Mason, for giving us a quick look of everywhere else on the green too. Smile, you're on camera there, Charlie.
That's my all-star lead.
Ah, okay.
I'm sure he'll have a comment of putting me on camera for when we get off the green. He is never short of words. But that's, of course, why I would like to play with him. If you ever, all teams have that, need that dynamic of the calm, the funny, and the different things like that. And Mason is definitely the guy in our group that keeps everybody loose. But if I miss a shot, he'll make sure he lets me know.
Yep.
We were kind of joking about being out here this week, and he said, well, we'd be out here if our skip made a few extra shots.
Chirp, chirp.
So once again, we're waiting for 8 months to go out there and do it again. But I'm sure the text messages chirping will continue for the next 8 months.
Yeah.
You want some room service?
Yeah, I do want to give a big shout out to all the volunteers here. They've been a fantastic crew. One gentleman in particular has been always catering to our women needs with replenishing our water or coffee or whatever it is. I think his name's Owen. But all the other volunteers have been absolutely spectacular too. I'm slowly trying to bring those bulls into the head.
I will say Owen's a great guy. He's one of the members of one of the clubs I'm at, but I will say it without him hearing it, because when we talk about Saskatchewan chirps, I think I hear more chirps from Owen than I do anybody else in this province. The draw came out for our indoor singles provincial, and he was on my side. I walked in the club. I hadn't even made it in 15 feet inside the gate, and he was yelling at me, "You're mine on Saturday." But he's done a great job. It's exciting to see some of the volunteers and the people come down from Saskatoon, Mayfair, Newtana to be a part of this.
See if Patty can get by that bowl just.
That's a great bowl.
There you go, numero uno. Am I having a quick joke there with Lori? Inside rub, almost.
That was a pretty good line, I think, for what they were trying to accomplish. Finished just in behind. That's in a great spot.
Lena's quick to be calling what you need to do. That bull hasn't even come to rest yet, and she's already halfway up there saying, hey, Anne-Marie, here's what you need to be doing. Come down, follow this path. We'll see if she listened to Lena's instructions. I think she's a little inside for what Lena was asking for. Yeah, just not quite there either. Need a little more weight, I guess. The line might have been okay if the weight was there.
I think so. They seem to be holding pretty well at the end here.
Mm-hmm. Don't know if that's going to be quite good enough there, Cheryl. That puts a nice little plug in the wall, so everybody's going to switch hands now, I think.
Nova Scotia's in a great spot here to count with the wall that's up there.
Mm-hmm.
See what kind of Emma Boyd magic we can watch here.
Look at that finding holes.
I'm not sure how that went through there.
Well, from the camera, you can see the holes nicely, the way it just went through those
Just
two.
through there.
But from our angle, yeah, that looked incredibly difficult.
Putting you on the hot seat, Jake. Where do you put this bowl?
Right on the jack. I mean, it looks like it's a relatively open draw over there, as long as you can squeak by that front blue. Don't have to be that close. You still have almost 2 feet to the closest bowl. Can't tell that from the camera angle, but for us you can. And I think that's what she's trying. I'm not sure if she's going through the hole or around it. And just caught the wrong edge of it, but that almost worked. Nova Scotia still holding one.
Almost perfect.
Yeah, just about. Well, Lena's got some weight on this one. Was trying for Emma's bowl there.
So close. Depending on what Emma does here, Lena doesn't have to change a whole lot to get the result on her next shot.
Hmm. Don't think Emma liked that one. She turned around and walked away right away.
Got just a little outside there and in the spot that it will hang a little bit.
Just too quick, I think.
A little quick.
So that should be one Nova Scotia to make it 15-7 for a final, and yes it is. And that's the game, and that's the end of the round. Thanks for commentating with me there, Charlie.
No, thanks for having me, Jake.
All right, we'll be back potentially tomorrow morning with tiebreakers at 9 a.m., but for sure with medal rounds at 1, weather permitting, obviously. Have a good night.